So how
All
are you
right. Well, thanks for
overall?
having me. I'm doing great. Yeah,
New
absolutely.
solo album coming out and things seems to be quite busy for you at the moment.
Yeah, actually really, really busy, but very, very good. The reaction to the record, I've never had such a good reaction before the record comes out. The record's not going to come out for another month from now, but it's been overwhelming, and I'm very happy with the record. So the fact that other people are enjoying it, it's a bonus. I'm very, very happy with it.
So are you the kind of guy that you actually follows what media writes about you, or do you try to stay away from all the reviews and such?
I stay away from reviews as much as possible. Um, if I'm happy with it and I sign off on it and I put it out there, that means I'm completely satisfied with it. And I can't control what other people do with it. I can't control whether people like it or not. I can't control anything about that. So it's kind of pointless to get involved with it. If you read about it and people are saying all kinds of nice things, then you get really a big head about it. And if you read about it and people are saying bad things, you feel bad about it. So there's really no bonus to following that stuff religiously. But sometimes I see what people are doing, and doing the course of these interviews, talking to people like yourself and journalists, and you kind of hear what's going on. And so I'm very pleased. But I'm mostly glad that I'm just satisfied with the record itself and happy that people are coming along to it.
So before we jump into drama, the upcoming solo album, is it okay if I ask few things about also Megadeth?
Sure.
You obviously did few shows with the guys, so how did it go on your end? How was it like to play with the guys again or play with Dave again to be more precise?
Oh, it was fantastic. It was like Budokan was the one thing that was kind of like unfinished business within the relationship between me and Dave, which has always been fantastic and still is. But there was just that one little thing that was there that was just kind of left, hanging there. And Dave was so gracious to invite me to play at the Budokan in Japan, and it was just a great way to tie things up. And wonderful for me, wonderful for the band. But the fans, watching the fans who were there that night, it was just really something special, something unusual. The look of the fans was different from a normal show. It was like people were like in disbelief, and people were like laughing and crying and big smiles, and it was just kind of a really special event. And I'm really glad that it happened.
And then you did it again in Wacken.
Yeah, yeah, that was kind of more coincidental because Megadeth was playing there and I was playing there on I forgot who was first, the day before, the day after, but we were both in the same place, and let's do it again. And it was a thrill there as well, So I'm just the biggest fan of those guys, and anytime they ask me to play, I'm happy to do it. And I just wish them all the best with their lineup that they got now, and glad to see them kicking ass.
So it was announced last year, I think it was in November, that Kiko will be leaving Megadeth. And he said in an interview that he would have wanted you to rejoin the band. So did the band ever like ask you about that?
No, and I don't think that's realistic. I don't know. I don't know anything about it. I don't think Dave would think that I would be a candidate to join the band or rejoin the band, and it's certainly not something that I thought of. And I think they're absolutely doing just fine the way they are. And I think their guitar player's Finnish,
Yeah, it
and
is. Yeah, it is.
yeah, and then I met him for a moment at Wacken. Seemed like a very cool guy, and I wish him nothing but the best. And he's gonna have a good time with those guys.
I think he's a big fan of you and your work. I think you're like one of his like biggest influences. So how
Oh,
how
wow.
how was like the meeting with between you?
I really didn't have too much time to chat with him very much because at the time he was Kiko was still in the band and he was there just kind of watching everything and just kind of being a fly on the wall and watching how, the band does its business. And was a very polite, cool guy. And unfortunately, I didn't get to see him play there, but uh, yeah, I didn't really know what was going on in the band, but I just was there to do my show and hooked up with them for a show, and he was there, and next thing you know, he's in the band. So all the best to him. I'm glad to hear he's a fan of mine because that's going to help in Megadeth. One of the things I remember about being in the band was it was really difficult for me to play the other guitar players' guitar work. Luckily, when I was in the band, they only had like 3 albums out before I joined the band, so
But
there
now there's
wasn't really
quite
much
many.
of a catalog. But it was very, very difficult for me to even try to play Chris Poland stuff, and I was not suited for that at all. So if the new guy is familiar with my stuff, it's going to make his life a lot easier, and hopefully he'll put his own stamp on things, and he'll make a whole lot of new fans too.
So now let's get to the main topic itself, which is Drama, the upcoming solo album of yours. So what kind of process it was to make this album?
Well, this time was a little bit different because I had a very luxurious way of doing guitars. I did all of my guitar work in Italy. I have a friend, a very dear friend who lives in Italy, and he has just the most unbelievable guitar collection, all vintage guitars. And he is the one who personally maintains them, and he's like a master guitar technician and amp technician, so he really knows how to maintain these instruments. And I never really cared about vintage guitars before this because I always had this image of them as stuff that doctors and lawyers buy and they put in a frame in their house, and that's the end of it, or at the Hard Rock Cafe or whatever. And anytime I'd pick up some old guitar from the 60s, it would buzz and make noise. And they say, here, this guitar is from history. It costs like 25 grand. But it doesn't sound good. It can't stay in tune. I just never had a good image of vintage guitars. But then I was at my friend's house. His name is Franco Piona. And I was playing some of his guitars, and it was just so beautiful sounding, these instruments, perfect tuning and ringing like a bell. And I just was getting chills while I was playing these guitars. I've never heard guitars sound like that before. And he always said, dude, anytime you want to come to Italy and record, you can use all of my guitars and I will tech for you. And it was just such an unbelievable offer. I couldn't really bring myself to take him up on it. But once I started writing the drama record, I was thinking, always in the back of my mind, if I had those guitars in Italy to do this music, I would have such a wide range of expressions, and I'd really be able to up my guitar game a lot by using these guitars. So we did it. I went to Italy twice. I did all of my guitars there. I did all of the other work in Los Angeles and Tokyo, but all the guitars were done in a very, very wonderful environment because I would play a guitar part and then Franco would say, okay, I think you should use the Fender 56 for this and a twin reverb from the 70s and try that. Play it again. No, we'll try a different setup. Now we'll try a different setup. Every single phrase on that record went through that process. So I'm playing things hundreds of times more than I normally would. But at the end, I just have the best tone of my entire career. And you can really tell that there's different guitars going on because on some of the stuff, I'm using my modern gear. I'm using my Jackson Signature model. I'm using my Engel Inferno. And you can definitely hear the contrast between those guitars and amps. And it's really something I've never needed to do on my albums before, but The material on drama was perfect for this kind of recording.
So were you like experimenting a lot with the guitars, like trying like certain parts with many different guitars that which would fit the most? And was it like a, sort of like a big puzzle to build?
Yes, yes. Thankfully, um, Franco, who did all the technician work, was there to judge things. I would just play the part, and he said, I know the exact guitar and amp for this kind of part.
Okay.
And then we tried and adjusted. So it was experimenting more than I've ever done in my life. Um, Usually I have great techs, but they're nowhere near as knowledgeable of vintage instruments because I never used vintage instruments before. Never did. I always used the most new, the newest guitars, the newest amps, the most adventurous, the new stuff, trying out new modern stuff. So I've never really had someone who knew about vintage guitars like Franco did. So it was a whole different things to work with. And if it weren't for him, I would have just done things a lot quicker, maybe 4 or 5 guitars and been out of there. But it was totally different on this record.
If I counted correctly, you can say if I didn't, this is like your 14th solo album.
It's actually my 15th.
Okay.
And if you count, I did an album called Be the Beginning, the Image album in Japan, which is basically a solo album. If you count that, that would be 16.
Is it difficult, like after so many solo albums, to found a sound and found an inspiration that satisfies you as a player?
Well, sonically, it's always been easy because I've never been that picky about effects and amps and things like that. I just get a tone that I like and I make the expression from the music and the melodies and my playing. So I'm not very much into effects and a lot of different amps and stuff usually. So sonically, it's usually never a big issue. I get a good sound and I run. And the music is always very different, but sonically, it's not so different. This time was the first time I've had so many different sonic options and someone who knew how to tailor those options to each part that I played. So it was very extravagant way to record. I've never done it before.
Do you feel that it's going to be very difficult to start making someday the next one because you have had like such an luxury to have like many different guitars, and I cannot myself see how you would like top this for the next one.
Yeah, you're exactly right. When I finished playing the guitars, I'm like, well, I can't record in Japan anymore because I have to come to Italy and I have
Sure.
to work with this team. It was Franco and a great engineer named Luigi, a nice Italian name. We had a really great system going, great pattern going. It took me a little bit with the language. They both speak very good English, but sometimes the language was a little bit weird for me with that Italian accents. So that took a little bit of adjustments. But like you said, I don't know what I'm going to do next time because it's really impossible to get used to that kind of selection. Um, the thing was, I wound up playing the same parts so many times. And over the course of doing that, I would also adjust my guitar parts a little bit more than normal. And so the guitar parts even evolved more than normal. And so as a result, it's really, I couldn't do anything any better. I couldn't be more satisfied with it. Whether or not other people like the record or not, I can't control that, but I can't be any more satisfied. I couldn't do it any better.
So where did you like draw the inspiration to the guitars on the album? Did you Where does like the inspiration come from to you?
It's never really from the instrument. That's why I was lucky to have Franco there to kind of tailor which guitars go for the parts. You know, I'm very inspired by melodies, and I'm always trying to build a song to some kind of emotional climax, some kind of a peak of sadness or a peak of uplifting feelings. Or I'm always trying to make a story out of the song, and I get inspired by little key modulations, and I get inspired by melodies and holding out notes in certain places. That's what makes me excited. And to have someone like Franco being the tech for the record, he might hear me do something and I'm sustaining it. And he might say, well, if you use this guitar, you could sustain longer and go one measure later with that. And that kind of advice is very valuable while I'm playing, because I'm just into what I'm playing. I'm not thinking about gear and gain and treble and bass. I'm not thinking of those things. I don't have that kind of talent or ability. I'm just thinking in the moment of what I'm doing on the instrument. But he would say, look, this part, he would get inspired. He'd hear the part I'm playing. He said, you know what? If you used lighter gauge strings, you could grip it this way and hold it longer or shorter or stronger, whatever. And so it was that kind of teamwork that got me really inspired. I would just play and watch him get inspired and then work from that.
Do you agree with me that you actually learned a lot about the instrument more with this album?
Absolutely. I was very ignorant before this. I used to always think that vintage guitars were just old pieces of junk. Um, of course, I understood the historical value of these
Yeah.
guitars. And this guitar was played at Woodstock, or Eric Clapton played it, or Van Halen, or whatever. That I understand. But I was never really impressed with the old guitars that I played. They just were never in tune and they made noise. And I'm like, who would want to use this when you could use a modern guitar that's really perfect? Who would want to use an iPhone 1 when you can use an iPhone 15, like that?
Bruce
But what I
Dickinson
learned
does.
this, yeah, you know what I mean?
He uses old Nokia cell phone for his like
Who
connection.
does?
Bruce Dickinson.
Who? I totally get it. But like if the guitar is maintained by someone with the abilities and the love for the instrument, I learned that these old instruments have a lot of new music and new expressions left in them. And I became a student on this record. I really learned a lot about it, and I was very ignorant before this. Now I get it.
Normally you have done like a lot of instrumental tracks, but there's also two on the upcoming album with vocals on. And I wanted to know that how do you make the decisions that which songs need vocals and which not?
Usually I just write whatever it is, and when it's starting to take shape, I can think, oh, well, this would be better with a vocal, or this would be better on guitar. But for the most part, I knew I was making an instrumental record, but I wanted one vocal song. And I wanted the vocal song to kind of represent the record feeling wise. I wanted a very melancholy song, but when you hear it, you feel uplifting. You feel better about whatever's going on. Um, hard times. I use music as a stress release. When I listen to other people's music, I enjoy it very, very much, because you get into that music and you forget about problems. And sometimes when you're really, really stressed out, you know how you go to like a certain, I'm fucking stressed. You go to a certain piece of music because you know it's going to work. I wanted to do that with this record. I wanted to be that for some people. Um, so I wanted the vocal song to kind of encapsulate that feeling within words and within music. It's, and like I said before, it's melancholy, but it's also uplifting. And yeah, that was the song "Dead of Winter" was that.
But there's also a song with Spanish vocals. So how did that come about?
That's basically the same song. It's kind of a love letter to my Spanish-speaking fans around the world. I've always had a wonderful, special relationship with people in Spanish-speaking countries, and it just kind of it's for them, but it's also for just an option for people to discover music in a different language in the way that I discovered Japanese music, where if you even if you don't understand the lyrics, you can enjoy it in a completely new way. And sometimes when you don't understand the lyrics, it's even more enjoyable.
It is.
I found that, you know what I mean? When I first started listening to Japanese music, I didn't speak the language. So I was enjoying it in a special way. Now that I can speak the language, sometimes some of the some of the fun wears off because I know what they're talking about. You know what I mean? So it's not only for the Spanish speaking people, it's for people who don't speak Spanish as well.
I guess a lot of metal fans would relate with Rammstein because I guess most of the people have like zero idea what they're singing about, but still they're filling stadiums like worldwide. So
That's a perfect example.
after putting the solo album out, how does the future look for you? Do you plan on like playing as many solo shows as possible with this, or how does the future overall look for you?
I plan to play as much as possible on this record and beyond. That's my favorite part of this business. Of course, I love making records and I love the feeling you get when you have expressed yourself in a way that you want to be represented with. Sometimes, especially when you're in your youngest part of your career, you make a lot of compromises because no budget or the record label wants you to do something you don't really want to do or whatever reason. But whenever you finish an album and this is me, this is what I want people to think of me as, that's a great feeling. And but touring is a whole nother, that's the reason I'm playing music in the first place. So I hope to tour as much as possible for drama. And right now the only shows we have are in Asia. But I guess if you follow me on the internet, social media, whatever, you'll find that when things get confirmed, and we should be confirming tours in the next couple months over the summer.
So there will be some kind of like European activity also happening touring wise.
Oh, absolutely. It's been too long since I played in Europe, and for this record, it's a definite place that I'm going to play.
Sounds good, and hopefully Finland will also fit the map as a beginner or as an ender for the tour.
Oh, I hope so. I hope so. It's one of my favorite places to play. For some reason, people in Finland seem to really have a guitar mentality
Yeah, they do.
more than other European countries. Maybe you know why that is. I'm not really sure why that is.
No, I don't actually know, but people like the instrument a lot. And there's obviously like most bands per capita in the whole world. So people in Finland like bands.
Yeah, it's really a great thing, and it's easy to notice. I mean, there's nothing, absolutely nothing wrong with the other countries in Europe, but I remember touring in Finland and being right after another country, and you can see the difference. And when I do like guitar seminars and stuff, it's been a while since I've done one in Finland, but I just remember going all around Europe, and it's been great. And then you go to Finland, and there's like twice as many people there, and they're all just very excited about the instrument. And so I just always knew that there's something about Finland and about their connection to the guitar, and always very curious about that.
Hey, Marty, thanks a lot for taking the time to do this with me, and all the best for the release of the upcoming solo album as well as for the future. Anything you want to say as a closure to all the fans watching this?
Well, thank you very much, Arto, and hope to see you in person really soon. And as always, I appreciate everyone's support. Um, and that's it. I'm just very lucky to be here doing this, and I really hope you like the new record.
Thanks a lot for taking the time, and hope to catch you in Finland, either doing some kind of clinic or doing a proper solo show.
Hopefully both. Hopefully both.
Hey,
All right, my brother.
thanks a lot.
Thank you very much. Take care.